Good evening, and welcome to Twisted and Mysterious, a podcast where a highly, severely couple of ADHD sisters wait until the last possible minute to do anything.
And some of us just woke up from a nap.
And both of us just got over a cold.
So,
it's gonna be a fun ride.
Yeah.
Especially because my brain has not been braining today. So,
whose has?
Definitely not mine. All right, well, I guess we're just going to get into this because it's already super late and I'm tired. I mean, you had a power nap.
I'm still pretty groggy from said power nap.
Yeah.
But, it was a really uneventful day anyway, so.
Yeah, not much has gone on other than, I literally got no work done today. All of the kids were testing. And so I was like, well, this is going to be great because I can get what I need to do done. And then I will work on the podcast. And plus I had night school. So I was like, well, I've got so much time. And then I went into executive dysfunction mode despite medication and medication boosters and just did nothing.
I crocheted part of a duck.
And I was cranky all day because I couldn't get anything done.
Yeah.
And my head has hurt for 2 days.
Yeah.
I'm sure part of it is the cold.
Oh, I'm sure.
Part of it is my period. Part of it is getting into a really bad sleep schedule during spring break and then going back to school. The Dust Bowl. Allergies just in spring in general.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just been a crazy couple of days as far as, feeling-wise. Not events, though.
No, it's been a pretty boring couple of days as far as events go.
Yeah. So, I had looked at a couple of different stories this week, but one of them I was like, I'll wait. The other one, I was starting to do notes on, 2 days ago or something, and I found a book about it that I wanted to read. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, well, I don't have time to read the book, so I'm going to do something that's so super fast. It was not so super fast.
No.
Okay,
so I was going to say, it wasn't all that fast, was it?
No, and I literally, because I was it was seriously I don't know, 4:30 or 5 o'clock even today, and I was sitting at my desk, and I was like, I have to do something. I have to get this done. We have to record tonight. But I don't know what to do. And so I Googled quick true crime cases. And this one came up. And I was like, I know a little bit about this. It'll be super fast. It wasn't. And I was like, this is going to be so, such a short episode. It's going to be 15 minutes and we're going to be done. And it's not. So, good luck to us. And to you guys, because you're going to be on this wild ride with us.
So, buckle up and let's do this thingy.
That's right. Okay, so, it's June 5th, 1986.
Is it?
Yeah, and you were just a wee babe.
Just a tiny baby.
Yeah. Bruce Nichols, a 52-year-old man living in Auburn, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle, came home from work with a headache, as one does.
As we all do.
Yeah. So, as some of us do, Bruce popped 4 extra-strength Excedrins from the bottle in his house. To me, 4 is insane.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not sure what the recommended dosing was in 1986, but, Excedrin is my drug of choice. And even then, sometimes just depending on the severity of the headache, I'll only take 1 because if I take 2, I'm going to get super jittery.
Yeah.
So I only take 2 if I have a migraine. And so maybe the dosage wasn't as high. I don't know, because also I was thinking back to, and I know he's a fictional character, but he was a little bit based on Stephen King. In The Shining, Jack Torrance chews up Excedrins. It's a bad habit. He started doing it because of his hangovers, because he was an alcoholic, but then it became just a habit. And so, I don't know, maybe dosage were different in the old days.
Maybe.
Those old days of the 1980s.
Ye olden days.
The 70s and 80s.
Of the 1900s.
Which I am still sure that the 70s were only 30 years ago. So.
Yes.
Time stopped in 2000, I think. Alright, so whatever the recommended dosage, Bruce took 4 of them. And according to his wife Stella, he walked out onto their back deck to watch the birds, and minutes later he collapsed. He was rushed to Harborview Medical Center and died shortly after arriving. The doctors working on him ruled his death to be by natural causes and cited emphysema complications.
Okay.
So, the end. We're done.
We're done. Story over.
Yeah, I told you I was going to be fast. How many minutes does that say? I took my glasses off.
6.
Oh.
And most of that was us blabbing.
Right on. Yeah, just kidding. Okay, so less than a week later, it's now June 11th. We're still in Auburn, Washington. A 40-year-old bank manager named Sue Snow Webking woke up with a headache. Same. In fact, my head hurt so bad when I woke up yesterday morning that I guess it had hurt while I was asleep because I can remember dreaming that I was in an ambulance going to the emergency room with a terrible headache.
That's not good.
That's not good. So, we're just all headachy around here. So, Sue wakes up. She takes 2 Excedrins from the bottle in her medicine cabinet. And this was not out of the norm for her. She seemed to have headaches frequently. Excedrin was her drug of choice. And according to a Medium article, Sue's daughter Haley stated that she saw her mom as she was on her way to take a shower. But right about 6:30, she heard a noise that sounded like something was dropped. When she got out of the shower, she could hear the sink faucet running in her mom's bathroom, which she had heard her turn on when she first got into the shower. And so she was like, well, that's weird. And she went down there to investigate. Haley found her mother collapsed on the bathroom floor. Now, the same Medium article says that Sue's head rested on the track of the shower door, her eyes fixed. One hand was across her breast, and the fingers curled backwards unnaturally. Haley realized her mom still had a faint pulse. She called a friend of Sue's who told her to call 911. First responders got to the house within 4 minutes. Sue was said to be in a state of respiratory distress. She was taken to Harborview Medical Center, and after initial examination, it was determined that her brain was swelling and she was in a coma. She was pronounced brain dead after 4 hours and removed from life support. But they had no idea what caused her to collapse and definitely not die. She was only 40, which is younger than this old lady telling you a story. And so they had to perform an autopsy because they didn't know what could have killed her.
Why would her fingers curl backwards?
I just wondered if, maybe, when she fell.
Maybe.
Maybe she had, bent them backwards.
I don't know.
Because also, I didn't write it down, but, her daughter said that she, was thinking that, her mom might have been in pain because her fingers were bent backwards. And so she, tried to straighten them out, and her mom, gasped like it hurt. Mm-hmm. But then she didn't exhale. And so I think that's when she called the friend and then called 911.
Okay.
So, I thought it sounded weird, too, but the more I thought about it, I was I think maybe just how she fell.
Maybe, because, I find the whole thing disturbing, but that's really disturbing me.
Yeah. So, an autopsy was performed on Sue Snow by the King County Medical Examiner, Dr. Corin Fligner. And I apologize if any of these titles are incorrect because there was different information in different sources. So, Wikipedia stated that Assistant Medical Examiner Janet Miller performed the autopsy and that Dr. Fligner was the medical examiner she reported to. The New York Times also listed Corin Fligner as the medical examiner, but the Medium article called Dr. Fligner the assistant medical examiner and that Janet Miller was her assistant. So maybe titles are backwards or weird or whatever, but regardless, these are the 2 women that performed the autopsy.
Right. It's always hard with different sources.
It really is. And I'm sorry, I'm going to try to edit out my sniffles, but we have had a cold last week and I'm very sniffly. Okay, so Janet Miller, during the autopsy, made the comment that she smelled something weird. She smelled the scent of bitter almonds. Do you know what that means?
What is it?
I mean, other than maybe the person had consumed a massive amounts of bitter almonds.
I'm trying to remember which poison it is. Is it arsenic or cyanide?
It's cyanide. So, fun fact about cyanide. Because, there's so many.
There's so many fun things about cyanide. It's a blast.
It's a blast. About 60% of the population is capable of smelling cyanide. I would have thought that it was a lesser known talent. 20 to 40% of people are not born with the gene that allows them to smell cyanide. Dr. Fligner apparently was one of the 20 to 40% born without the gene because she said she couldn't smell it. Plus another, just as per usual, cats are destroying things while we're talking to you guys. So, now I lost my place. Okay, so Dr. Fligner couldn't smell the cyanide. Well, couldn't smell the almonds. And then there's another indicator of cyanide poisoning that your skin is usually like cherry red, but Sue's skin was not. But there was no other explanation that they could find for why she was dead. And so they went ahead and ordered the test, and it did confirm that Sue had died of acute cyanide poisoning. Sue's husband, Paul, informed the medical examiner that Sue suffered from persistent headaches and took extra strength Excedrin every morning. Her daughter Haley did confirm this fact, and that she had just purchased a new bottle. And armed with this knowledge, investigators were sent to the Webb King home, and after tests, the source of the cyanide was found to be the bottle of Excedrin. Paul also told Dr. Fligner and the police that he had taken 2 Excedrin the previous morning without any problems, and he had taken them out of the same bottle. And I guess this is possible because after testing, there are only 9 of the capsules remaining in the bottle were laced with cyanide in toxic quantities. I don't know if that meant that there were others that had some traces, but there were 9 that had a toxic quantity. The New York Times article that I found from June 18th, 1986 says that there were 57 capsules remaining from the 60 capsule bottle, and that only 3 of the remaining 57 were laced. But since they both seem to have taken 2, the Medium article seems more in line with that story. Unless Paul was lying.
Which people do.
People do. So, just a little background on these characters. Sue, fun fact, is originally from New Mexico. So that was a little tie-in there that I didn't expect. At 16, she became pregnant and married and had dropped out of school. That marriage was very short-lived. And then she married her former brother-in-law, Connie Snow. Connie relocated the couple to Washington State, where Sue earned her GED and started working as a bank teller, and she eventually worked her way up in the bank to a vice president position. She and Connie Snow had a baby, Haley, but the couple eventually divorced. I think this is the first instance where I've ever heard of a man named Connie.
Yeah, I've heard of other effeminate names or whatever.
Yeah,
if you want to call them that.
Ashley Angel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's men named Leslie and things like that.
But I don't think I've ever heard of Connie.
No.
But anyway, so they got divorced, but she loved the name Snow, so she decided to keep it. In the late 70s, she met Paul Webb King, who was the father of one of Sue's daughter's friends. Paul had been married 4 times before Sue, and he worked as a long-haul trucker. They lived together for 5 years and then eloped on Thanksgiving Day in 1985. And in this summer of 1986, the marriage didn't seem to be a happy one. Paul didn't seem to be the most pleasant of dudes. There didn't seem to be any abuse or anything. He just didn't seem like he was all that likable. Her family didn't really like him. Haley didn't like him. And he had apparently also been stepping out on Sue while he was on his long truck trips. Okay, so we were interrupted by the dog. So I don't remember where I was. I'm just going to back up a little bit just in case. So Sue's family didn't really like Paul. Haley didn't really like Paul, and he had been, like, having an affair while he was on his long truck trips to California. And Sue found out, and she was suffering some depression because of it. But also in her previous marriages, or marriage, I guess, because she had been married when she was like a kid, and then her second marriage, but she had also had some affairs during her previous marriage. She didn't seem to be having any while she was married to Paul, but, I mean, Paul could have thought maybe she did. And Sue's co-workers claimed that she was flirtatious with the male customers and sometimes had lunch dates with them. And I was just like, well, these also could have been business lunches because she was a vice president.
Right.
But, you know.
And sometimes women use what they've got.
Right. But also sometimes people construe being friendly as being flirtatious. Mm-hmm. And like, especially for women, like, it just seems like such a stereotypical thing for women in power, that they're like flirtatious, or that they, you know, like got to the top by, you know, whatever. But anyway, so those things, coupled with the fact that Paul didn't seem too fazed by Sue's death, made Paul the prime suspect in her death. And now, I'm not saying that his reaction or lack of reaction is a sign of guilt, because we all process and grieve differently.
We all do it differently.
But his demeanor just seemed off to the police. Sue was a twin. Her twin sister's name was Sarah, also spelled like mine. So there's another little tie in there. Yes. She, I guess, didn't live in Washington. I don't know if she lived in New Mexico, but she got to Auburn the day that Sue collapsed. And she also found something weird about what was going on, other than the fact that her 40-year-old twin just seemed to drop dead for no apparent reason, because at this time the cyanide hadn't been tested or confirmed. Sarah told police, or the medical examiner, I don't know who she originally told this to, that it was weird that the Excedrin found in Sue's bathroom were gel capsules, because after the Tylenol poisonings that occurred in Chicago in 1982, my birth year,
yes,
that Sue refused to take pills that came in capsule form and would only take tablets. But Paul, on the other hand, had told police that Sue always took the gel capsules. And I'm inclined to believe her sister.
Right.
Because that makes a lot of sense. Because I could understand why. I mean, this was so fresh. This was like 4 years ago that this happened, that you would be paranoid that that would happen again. Especially because they never found the person who poisoned the Tylenol. So, you never know.
Yeah.
The FBI became involved in the investigation pretty quickly. They had all the Excedrin bottles in the Auburn stores pulled from shelves. Excedrin's manufacturer Bristol Myers also performed a nationwide recall. The bottles from Auburn were tested, and a bottle that was on the shelf of Johnny's Market in Kent, which was like just a town next to Auburn, was also found to be tainted. After the Tylenol poisonings that happened, this became news, because, you know, that was still fresh on everybody's mind. More something medicines being, you know, poisoned. So on Tuesday, June 17th, this is like about a week after all of this happened, the King County Police received a phone call from a, quote, hysterical woman who claimed that her husband had recently died after taking Excedrin, and that the bottle matched the lot number of the bottle that Sue Snow had. This woman was Bruce Nichols' wife, Stella.
Yes.
And Stella, who seemed much calmer than she had over the phone, like when the officer showed up, told him that, or told him about her husband taking the Excedrin after arriving home from work with a headache and collapsing and then dying in the hospital. And she also said that she never understood why his death had been ruled as emphysema, because he didn't have emphysema and he was a pretty healthy guy. And while the police officer was there, she also gave him another bottle, or gave him that bottle of Excedrin that he had taken when he died. There were only 8 capsules left, which she said was because he had been suffering headaches almost daily and for weeks had been taking 3 to 4 Excedrins daily.
Emphysema seems oddly specific for...
Well, right. And, like, that was, like... Yeah, I mean, he was a smoker, and so maybe he did have emphysema, but she didn't, but, like, maybe it was, like, in its, like, early stages or something, they didn't know. Because I don't know why the doctors would just be like, he has emphysema, and that's why he died.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it seems oddly specific for what actually happened. You know, I know they didn't know at the time what actually happened, but, like, for what actually happened, that just seems weirdly specific.
Right.
To be what they blamed it on.
And so, Stella had another brand new bottle of Excedrin that was in its box, and she gave that to the police as well, and he saw that the cap was loose, but the bottle was full, and she told the police officer that she had purchased both bottles 2 weeks before Bruce had died, but she bought them from 2 separate locations, one in Auburn, and the other bottle, the full one, had been from Johnny's Market in Kent. So that's the same place that they had found that other tainted bottle. By June 17th, this was that same day, sorry. Bruce Nichol had already been buried at this point, but blood that had been drawn while he was in the hospital was tested and found to contain a fatal level of cyanide as well. So the police were very much focusing on Sue's murder, and were pursuing various leads. So, for instance, they suspected that because of Sue's quote-unquote flirtatious demeanor or her previous affairs, that maybe a scorned ex-wife or girlfriend had killed her.
They wouldn't they have done a talk screen on him since he just kind of dropped dead? Like,
well, I don't know if it's just because they just, like, were like, oh, he had emphysema. And so they didn't. Like, they just ruled it that way and just...
I don't know.
So they thought maybe, like, an ex-wife or a girlfriend had killed her. She also had apparently discovered some type of, like, extortion or fraud or something at the bank, like, 6 months before her murder. And so that was another lead, but those were dead ends. Paul had also made the statement to the police that they would never solve her murder, which, I mean, I guess if you're looking at the Tylenol murders, like, maybe that was just, like, him being like, you never caught that guy, why do you think you're going to catch this guy?
Right.
Maybe he's a bad guy. But, like, 4 months after Sue's death, Paul gets a brand new girlfriend and, like, has a glow up.
As one does after...
He's wearing some nice new clothes. He's throwing cash around. He also gets engaged to this new girlfriend in December, which is, like, 6 months after his wife dies. Murdered. Whatever, is poisoned. And so, like, they really felt that Paul had motive to murder Sue, but they couldn't find a connection that led him to Bruce Nichol. And so they were like, we don't know. Plus, Paul had taken a lie detector test and he had passed that, which I know these days they don't use those, like, they're not admissible in court anymore. I think they still use them sometimes, like, just as, like, an indicator,
but they don't put a whole lot of stock in them.
Yeah, because, like, some people can make themselves be calm while they're taking them. Some people are just naturally nervous.
Oh,
like,
I know.
Everything I would say would be a lie.
I always think that, too. Like, if I ever had to take a polygraph test, that there's no way, even if I was telling the truth, that I could be calm. And so I think that everything I said would come off as a lie.
Oh, yeah. I have a panic attack no matter what I'm talking about. So, yeah. They would just, like, throw me right in jail. So... let's talk about Bruce. So Bruce was born in June of 1934 and had been adopted as a baby by an apple farmer and a school teacher. The Medium article I read said that he had a Norman Rockwell-esque childhood.
I was going to say, that sounds very, like, storybooky or, like, idyllic. Like,
yeah, because they said, you know, like, the beauty of, like, the Washington, like, the mountains in the background and the apple farm, and, you know, that it was very, like, a pretty scene, and that, you know, his parents doted on him and everything, but he started drinking at the age of 15 and started making some dumb decisions. He joined the Marines, but was dishonorably discharged after going AWOL. He had 2 sons who he didn't stick around to take care of. When he was drunk, he liked to fight. He would be thrown out of bars. Stella was Bruce's 5th wife. They got married in 1976. They broke up a year later. Then they got back together a few months after they broke up. Bruce started working as a mechanic, and after some years of struggling, Bruce got sober, and he seemed to live a pretty regular life.
Yeah.
Stella worked as a security screener at SeaTac Airport with her daughter Cindy. The day that Bruce died seemed like any other regular day. Stella said that he went to work, he came home, he showered. When he got out of the shower, she was making dinner. And this was when he complained of his headache, took the Excedrin, told Stella he was going to look at the birds, but that he stopped and said, "I don't feel so well," and collapsed. First responders arrived at the house a little after 5 p.m. Stella and Bruce lived in a rural area, and the ambulance thought that it was weird that no one was standing out at the end of the driveway waving them in the right direction, because when they were going to, like, rural places, kind of people would do that to kind of be like, "Hey, we're over here," kind of thing. But nobody was outside, and when they went up to the door, Stella was, like, looking at them from behind the curtains rather than, like, opening the door, you know?
Like, standing there waiting on them.
Yeah. So paramedics stated that Bruce was in his bathrobe on the living room floor, gasping for air. They observed that from the neck down he was pale, but from the neck up he was red, which we just discussed is, you know, also an indicator of cyanide poisoning. But I guess none of these people had the gene that could smell the almonds. But also, I don't know if you just smell it. Like, like during the autopsy, like,
or
when they have
if you
open,
like recognize what you're smelling,
right? Because, like, I'm not a very good smeller. Like, I get nose blind super fast, and like, because my classroom will stink sometimes, and like the kids will be like, "Oh, it smells so bad in here," and I'm like, I don't even smell it anymore. So I don't know.
Like, just because you smell it doesn't mean that you recognize that you smell it, you know?
Right.
Or, like, recognize what you're smelling.
So Stella was also kind of weirdly calm throughout the ordeal. She told the paramedics Bruce's medical history, stating that he didn't really have any issues other than he was previously an alcoholic. But again, being calm doesn't mean that she did anything wrong. Some people are just really good in times of crisis. Like, they can just, you know, do what they gotta do.
Sometimes people compartmentalize.
And I can do that sometimes too, and so I can kind of see that. She also had the good sense to realize that maybe he had taken something that made him sick. So, for instance, she got his cigarettes out and broke them open to see if there was anything weird inside. I don't know what she would have seen.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know what you would, like, recognize that.
I don't either.
Unless it was, like, bright blue or
like
something.
Obvious like... something, yeah. She also mentioned the Tylenol poisonings a few times while the paramedics were still in the house. So maybe Stella's onto something. So
she's just clever.
She's just so clever. So as we know, Bruce died not long after arriving at the hospital. He was 52 when he died. Later that same night that Bruce died, around 10 p.m., Stella called the paramedics stating that they had wrapped Bruce up in a knitted Afghan when they took him to the hospital, and she wanted that back.
I need my blanket.
Like, maybe her mom made it for her or something, and it was real special to her, and it's her favorite blanket.
I don't know. It just seems like priorities.
Yeah, I mean, her husband did just literally die.
I'm gonna need that blanket
in
back,
like
though.
kind of like a
mysterious sort of way.
and like an emergent way, like not just like he didn't wake up.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The blanket was really special.
Yes.
So, back to the investigation. All of the bottles pulled from the shelves and from the homes of Bruce and Sue were analyzed. 23 capsules were laced with fatal amounts of potassium cyanide. Weirdly, 17 of those 23 capsules also had some weird green stuff on them. And after the smart science people analyzed the weird green stuff, it was determined to be an algaecide, specific to a brand called Algae Destroyer, which is sold for home aquariums.
I was going to say fish stuff.
Mm-hmm. So, who do you think had an aquarium in their home?
What is his name?
Which one?
The husband of the lady that died.
Oh, Paul?
Yeah.
Paul Webb King?
Yes.
You're incorrect. It was Stella.
Oh.
Yeah. So the detectives recalled that Stella had a pretty nice aquarium set up in her living room when they spoke with her. And these detectives started, I don't know, discreetly maybe, started going around to local pet stores and fish supply stores. Apparently there were 60 places that they looked at, which is wild. Yeah. So either people in like this Auburn, Kent area love the fish, or maybe they also like ventured into Seattle.
I don't know. We have a Petco and some really creepy pet store that shouldn't exist.
Oh, so terrible. Yeah. So they went to 60 different places. I still think it's crazy. Out of the 60 places they went, they found a store that the clerk remembered selling Stella some algae destroyer. And he had even given her some advice. Apparently, algae destroyer comes in tablets, and the clerk had told her that she should grind them up before putting them in the aquarium because they work better. So
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, but like not only did he remember her, he remembered that he had also like told her of this information when he was selling her the product.
Yeah. It would dissolve faster if you grind it up.
Yeah. So now they have to start looking for a motive for Bruce's death instead of Sue's death. And they decided to look at money. So dear Stella had taken out a life insurance policy on Bruce for $76,000 with a $100,000 bonus if his death was ruled an accident. So also maybe coincidentally, of those 23 tainted pills they found, some of them came from both bottles of Excedrin that Stella had given to the police. And, like, what are the odds that she bought 2 tainted bottles from 2 different stores in 2 different towns?
Exactly.
She either has, like, the worst luck imaginable, or there's something fishy about Stella.
Well, there's something fishy about Stella.
Other than she loves the fish.
Yes.
Okay, so police gave Stella a polygraph, which she failed. And I put in here because earlier I had said that Paul Webb King had passed his polygraph, so he's apparently just a frickin' creep.
Yeah.
He's
just not a great guy.
Yeah. They also searched her home and found a mortar. I wrote mortal. I don't know if the autocorrect fixed that for me or not.
Yeah.
But a mortar and pestle with traces of weird green stuff and cyanide in it. But they didn't arrest our fishy friend Stella yet, though, because they couldn't find any evidence that she had purchased any cyanide. So, would you care for some background on Stella?
Sure.
Stella didn't have the best childhood. Her family was poor, and her father had also allegedly molested her older sister. Stella never claimed the same abuse, but she was moved around to various family members and foster homes. She had her first baby when she was 15. She tried to convince a 19-year-old boy that she had previously dated into marrying her and claiming that the baby was his, but he refused to marry her, but he did consider the baby to be his.
Yeah.
And he had wanted to fight Stella for custody of the baby because he was like, you're not a great mom. But she threatened him that she was going to turn him in for statutory rape. And so he went away. And Stella, she loved to party. And she loved to party so much that she'd even take her baby with her.
Okay.
Yeah. So...
It's a party baby.
Yeah. So Cindy would hang out in... I don't know if I ever mentioned that her name was Cindy. Her daughter's name was Cindy. So by the age of 15, Cindy was a wild child too, because that's how...
Because she was a party baby.
Yeah, she was a party baby. Her mother would regularly sell her to men.
Good times.
Yeah. So Stella married 2 times and had another baby from her second marriage. She then started living a life of crime. Not that the other stuff was not criminal.
No.
But I guess, I don't know.
Crimier crime.
Crimier crime, yeah. She was convicted of fraud in 1968 and charged with spousal abuse a year later after beating her husband with a curtain rod. 3 years later, she was arrested and convicted of forgery and spent 6 months in jail. She was still married to her second husband, and Bruce was still married to his 4th wife when they met and started having an affair. Plus, they both loved booze, and so they got along great. They eventually left their spouses and got married, and she gave up custody of her second daughter to that girl's father. In January of 1987, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. I made that not smooth at all. January 1987, so this is after everybody died from the poisoning. Cindy, the daughter, went to the police and told them that Stella had been talking about Bruce for years. Did I say killing Bruce?
No, you just said talking about Bruce.
Talking about him.
Just talking about him.
Just talking about him. She had been talking about killing Bruce for years. But while they were working together at the airport, Stella seemed to actually start planning it. And so her first plan that she told Cindy about was that she wanted to poison him by putting heroin or cocaine into his iced tea. But she didn't know where to get heroin or cocaine, which surprises me because it seems like it wasn't that long ago that she was like living this crazy lifestyle.
Plus, it was the 80s. Wasn't cocaine everywhere?
I'm pretty sure. I've watched Blow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just seems like a stereotypical, like,
80s thing. Yeah, it was a very 80s thing. Let's see. So then she started reading up on other ways to poison. And her first attempt was putting poisonous seeds into capsules and then feeding them to Bruce. But rather than, like, killing him or making him sick, they just kind of made him lethargic.
Yeah.
So she was like, well, that's a terrible idea. When that didn't work, she thought maybe she could hire a hitman. And that said hitman could either shoot Bruce while he was in his truck or run him off the road or mess with his brakes. But dadgummit, she didn't have the money to hire a hitman.
This lady is wacky. Like, I'm not condoning murder, but I feel like there are a lot more practical ways to murder someone than these outlandish ideas she's coming up with.
Yeah. Yeah, so hitmen don't come cheap.
No.
So, let's see. So, also around this time, Stella was also having an affair with one of Bruce's friends. So, that was a great friend. This guy was a photographer, and he had a dark room in his house, and Stella had told Cindy that she learned that cyanide was used to develop film. Mm-hmm. This friend provided some samples of his chemicals, like his darkroom chemicals, and none of them contained cyanide. So I'm not 1,000% sure where she ended up getting the cyanide from, but after reading up on some poisons and specifically cyanide from books from the local library, she chose cyanide as the way to go. So
good old-fashioned cyanide.
Yeah. Well, and then remember, the mortar and pestle had the weird green stuff in it, plus the cyanide, because she was crushing up the algicide to put into her fish tank, but then also crushed the cyanide up in the same mortar and pestle without cleaning it. And so that ended up, like, why the algicide was on the cyanide. Like, it wasn't that the algicide was used as part of the poison. It just was, like,
just
in
like
the
trace.
same, yeah. So, why did Stella kill Bruce?
Because she's a creep.
Basically, so Cindy said that Stella claimed that now that Bruce was sober, he was boring.
Okay.
Yeah. And she didn't want to divorce him because she didn't want to split their assets with him.
Oh, poor her.
No. They didn't seem to have many assets.
No.
Plus, if she got life insurance money, she could buy herself a tropical fish store.
She really does love the fish.
She loves the fish. So, plus, homegirl was in a lot of debt. And I mean, like, they together were in a lot of debt.
Who isn't?
So, their house payments were consistently late. And I guess that they had received a final notice of delinquency on their house loan. She had a ton of credit card debt. And, like, a paper that was filed with the courts showed that she was only making about $620 a month, which is roughly about $1,700 now, which is not a lot of money.
No.
Especially, like, her husband's now dead, and, like, that's not enough money to live on by yourself, especially with a mortgage and everything else. So, the problem, though, was that Bruce's life insurance only had the extra $100,000 payout if his death was an accident. And do you remember what his death was originally declared?
As emphysema.
Emphysema, which is a natural death. So, Stella had read in her library books about how cyanide had the smell of bitter almonds, and she had assumed that when Bruce died, or like was in the hospital or anything, that the doctors would smell the almonds, and that would declare him like a cyanide poisoning.
Yeah, would clue him in,
and then that would go back to like his Excedrin, and that it would be declared an accident. But then that didn't happen. So then she was like, well, what am I gonna do now? Well, the answer is other people are going to have to be poisoned by cyanide Excedrin. So she bought 9 bottles. She cut through the film with a razor, laced some of the pills with cyanide, and then put them into random stores. And because this is 1986, we don't have the barcodes where if you scanned it and you weren't in the right store, it would tell you, like, this like product doesn't exist. It just had, like, the price stickers on them, and, like, so it, you know, they didn't notice. Poor Sue Snow bought one of those bottles, but I guess luckily it didn't seem that anybody else had. So, also an FBI forensic lab techie guy found that Bruce's signature on the life insurance documents had been forged and was a match to Stella's handwriting.
Yeah.
And plus, the library books on poison had her fingerprints on them.
Of course.
Yeah. During the grand jury hearing, Stella's adult niece testified that Stella just couldn't have done it. She was planning on leaving Bruce, so why would she kill him? But she also said that Stella had been talking about insurance money so much that, quote, I was getting sick and tired of hearing about what she was going to get.
Okay.
Stella's trial, like official trial, began in April of 1988. She took the stand and denied everything. Her attorney argued that she signed the life insurance papers for Bruce because she always signed papers for him during their whole marriage, that she was an avid reader, so that's why she had checked those books out from the library, and she had chosen the books on poison because she wanted to ensure that her granddaughter was safe in the rural, like, community that they lived in.
Because she just might get poisoned?
You never know. And that Cindy, her daughter, had only come forward and said those horrible things about her because she wanted the $300,000 reward. And the jury was like, nah. And on May 9th, 1988, Stella was found guilty on all charges and was sentenced to 90 years with the possibility of parole after 30 years. And I was like, she's a danger to the community.
Right.
Like, she poisoned...
She didn't just poison her husband. She tried to poison lots of people.
She tried to poison, like... She poisoned, what was, like, 27 pills that they found?
Mm-hmm.
So that could have potentially been, like, if it was somebody like me that only took one, that could have been 27 different people.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe the reasoning was, like, her target was her husband, and, like, she did what she set out to do, and maybe that's...
I don't know. Like, her target was her husband, but she also intentionally tried to poison other people.
Yeah.
To get away with killing her husband.
Yep. Paul, Webb King, and Sue's daughters settled out of court with Bristol Myers, which I don't really understand how they were able to get money from Excedrin, because it wasn't Excedrin's fault. Right. But, I mean, I don't fault them, because they had... I don't know if they had started the lawsuit before this happened, and so that was... But it said that the daughters used some of the money to, like, pay for their educations. Haley moved to New Mexico with her husband and son. In 2000, there was supposed to be a movie where Katie Siegel played Stella, but it never happened. There was some concern about, like, harming the brands of Tylenol and Excedrin again, and they also worried that, like, copycats would be inspired by the movie.
Yeah, but I mean, couldn't that be said of any movie about murder?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, right? And, like, Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically anything.
Yeah.
Let's see, Stella was first up for parole in 2018, and she was like, you guys, I have been a fantastic inmate, so you should let me go. And they said no. And then a year later, she was up for parole again. I don't know why she was up for parole every year, because that seems weird, because isn't it usually like every 4 years or something?
I don't know. I think there's usually some sort of standard, but
yeah.
What do I know?
But the next year, she had another parole hearing, and she finally admitted to poisoning the Excedrins. But she claimed that it was because she was being abused by Bruce. And Haley was just like, that was like a half confession.
Yeah.
And so she wrote to the parole board, and she was denied parole again. In May 2022, Stella asked for a compassionate release. She's like in her 70s, and she said that she was having terrible health problems. She wouldn't live much longer, and she wanted to spend time with her grandchildren and her children, and that she's been such a great prisoner this whole time.
Do her children and grandchildren want to spend time with her?
I just can't imagine. And so she was denied parole again. They said no. She's still currently in prison with a release date of July 10th, 2040. She will be 96 years old if she makes it.
All right.
Yeah. So that is the story of the Washington Excedrin poisonings.
That was a quick one.
It was so quick. It was only almost an hour.
Yes.
And actually, there's like a big chunk that I'm going to have to edit out of that from when Rooney was needing her very long drink.
Yes.
Well, I guess one more note that I wrote down here was that after the Chicago poisonings in 1982, where 7 people were killed that they know of, also with potassium cyanide, that it led to legislation being enacted in 1983 mandating tamper-proof packaging for most over-the-counter medications. So even with the tamper-proof packaging, Stella still managed to kill some people.
She figured it out.
Or at least killed a person. I mean, she killed Bruce, but she didn't do it by package tampering. She just did that for fun. Stella, our fishy friend.
Oh, Stella.
I would do the streetcar named Desire, but it probably wouldn't come off very well.
No. We'll just leave that to
everybody's imagination. Yes. And the professionals. Yeah. Well, I guess that is all.
Yeah. Now we have to edit this and go to bed.
Oh, we nothing. Me have to.
I'm there with you in spirit.
Oh, thank you. Are you going to go cross some animals while I do it?
Possibly, or fall asleep again.
Yeah, I might fall asleep too. All right. Well, I always say every week that I'm going to try to do better next week.
Yeah.
But, to be fair, I've always worked like this. Even, in school, writing research papers and stuff, I was always up till, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning the night before it was due writing the entire thing. So.
Me too, but it just kind of goes back to this where I'm terrible at research.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not terrible at it. I just, I think I always expect that it's going to be easier than it is. And it's not that it's hard. It's just longer than I anticipate.
I don't know. It's hard for me and it's overwhelming.
Yeah. I think I only start getting overwhelmed when I look at the clock and I'm like, oh crap, it's 9:30 and I'm still writing. We're all the different people.
Yes.
So
We're all special and unique.
Hoping everybody has a better week. I don't know if you're having a bad week, but if you are, I hope you have a better week. And if you're having a great week already, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.
It gets even better.
Even better. It's getting warmer, so that's better.
Yes.
The sun's staying up longer, so that's better.
Those are nice things. They make you feel like things are gonna get better, even if...
Yeah. And I know that not everybody's a teacher, but there's only 40 more days of school. So, we're 40 days closer, or whatever, to summer vacation. We're only 40 days away from summer vacation, I guess.
Well, I hate it when people say that because you have to count the weekends as well.
So we're only 58 more days until summer vacation.
Because we have to live through those days as well.
We do have to live through those days. But I would argue that weekend days are a quarter the length of a weekday.
They do go by a lot faster than a weekday or a work day.
So you blink and you miss them. And so I really only count the work days because those ones go by the slowest.
True.
All right. Well, that is all.
That is all. Tell them where they can find us.
Oh, that's a good idea. All of our social media is at twistedandmysterious. You can email us at twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com, where we would love for you to send us your own stories, paranormal, true crimey, something you want to tell us, or you can send us story suggestions. We're happy to have those because
sometimes it's hard to think of what to do.
Tell Faren about some alien stories that she should talk to us about. Is that it?
I think so.
All right. Oh, also, my dearest friend Amy said that South America needs to get on the download train because they are the only inhabited continent that has not downloaded anything from our podcast.
So if you know someone in South America, or if you're listening in South America,
throw a download on there,
right?
just so it shows up on our map. But, and I know the, other podcasts, take off much quicker and all of those kinds of things. But, we're, 450 downloads or something in, what did I say, 107 different places or something?
Something like that.
And so, I don't know. I feel like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's more than I expected.
Exactly. It's more than what we expected from something that we expected to just sort of do.
And probably fizzle out because we are terrible at following through at things.
Yes.
And
so, you're all welcome.
Yeah. And we're really happy that you're listening and that there's some people in England and around the States that seem to download every week, and thank you for listening.
We appreciate it. We genuinely do.
We really, really do. All right. Well, take it away, Steve.
Okay. Well, that's all for this week. We will be back next week. And remember that people are gross and don't get murdered.
Goodbye.
Bye.